I just opened my door to opened my front door to let my dog out,
Hmm.
and I, my my front yard is just so ridiculous. There's so many weeds. It's really embarrassing. I mean, and they're like tall. I mean, they're like up to like my waist. I it's ridiculous. I've got to do some gardening today or something because it's so embarrassing.
Yeah, I try. I get that. I mean, I don't know. It's all cultural stuff, you know. Sometimes I think about like I keep my lawn kind of high. Like I keep it on
Yeah,
control, but I keep it kind of high. But like at the same time, like it's weird that we're just like, oh yeah, this we must tame nature at all times and keep it lower than it wants to be. You know
right.
what I mean? Like I don't know. Have you ever eaten dandelion leaves?
You mentioned that before. Yeah, I need to try that. So,
Yeah, they're so delicious, and it's
mhm.
it's frustrating because there's just easy food is
Yeah.
growing out there that we can just eat. But
Mhm.
there's this whole weird cultural thing about it now that like I don't know. We just like what are yards even about? Like what are yards?
Exactly.
I mean, what I'm trying to say is like, hi Andrew,
Hi, Brandon.
start that timer.
Booyah.
I thought that was a good transition. That didn't feel forced in any way, shape, or form.
Not forced at all. All right,
No,
let's
because
get
I
Leo
we
back
know what we're
on.
talking about this week, which is pretty exciting.
Well,
Uh,
that gives us some direction, I think, because we can kind of goof off. We can have a little cat butt in the middle, but
Yeah, that's now we know that we're gonna have a big number this week because we got cattail.
exactly.
This could be Brandon just
This
looking
this
at a
could hit
cat.
this is yeah, could hit 100. I think
This could hit
you had
100, and then we have to have our week of silently drinking coffee and staring at each other. Why don't we
exactly.
go to that? We talked about this image. Why don't we go to a different one? See how we feel.
Yeah, let's go ahead. All right, so this is I mean, again, it's kind of cool like seeing all of these, and this is what I was, again noticing
Hmm.
um is that even though like we are, or at least in my mind, I'm doing it sort of image by image and very reactive. It's nice watching it all together because you can see the flow and see kind of our thought process
Hmm.
with all of it. Um, yeah, so like coming out of this one, well, it's not going back, but oh, there we go. Yeah, coming out of this one,
Hmm.
and then sort of diving into a little bit sort of closer image up here and getting this flame, I think is really cool.
Yeah, this is just another really big example. There were candles last time.
Mhm.
These are called fractal candles. They're made a very specific way in the program I use, and they take basically you take an image and you make it again and again and again, and you reverse it again and again and again until it sort of becomes this design, and then you take the design and you manipulate it so that it becomes a cylinder. And then you take the
Hmm.
cylinder and you darken one side and you lighten one side, and then and then you create the flame. And then like it's a lot
Hmm.
of layers. It's a lot of layers and work to create a very digital image. It's a very digitally controlled image.
Huh, interesting. So,
It only can exist sort of the way it looks at in a computer. Like it's not it's very much made by computer.
okay.
Um, and I used to make them constantly every once. I'll probably now that I see this, we're gonna see it in the next Zodiac sooner than later because I'll go, oh yeah, I do like making those.
Hmm.
Uh, it is one of those, but they showed up yet again. This is a reaction from Capricorn at this point still, where the candles when they showed up in Capricorn were like on like beings and very frightening. And I wanted to create a much more positive experience here. And I think what you see here is me like there's a light of hope everywhere.
Hmm.
That's that. Also, this is another example. If you looked at the previous image, this image, they're connected because like I don't know what I'm going to make the next image, but then when I hear the music, I do
Hmm.
think, well, where does that sit with the image that I've just made?
Hmm.
And this one was the big example of this one was okay, this feels like something pulling in. And this is again
Yeah.
pulling into one of the candles in the tower or the candle at the top of the tower. Because if you look at
Uh-huh.
the top of the lower tower, there's a bright light. And then like the thing is, a lot of times when I make stuff and we do that pull in, all the rules have changed. It's not
Hmm.
like oh this is this and this is what the background of the image was. This is just a image that I've sort of separated it and can have a
Yeah.
whole different set of rules, you know?
Well, that's what I was thinking about this one. So is that it was probably zooming in on either that or maybe even like maybe inside whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's kind of cool to see that kind of
Mm.
again, it was sort of taking the lens and just sort of zooming into um again, not thinking of it as a movie, but just uh different perspectives, of what could be the same piece of art.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about it as a movie, but I think certainly using the language of film, which is a
Mhm.
little bit different.
Yeah.
Also, we're 6 minutes in. At least personally, I've found no narrative to speak of at this point. Though when I was making it, I had no narrative in my head.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
this, this is the one where things got dark.
yeah, and I think, yeah, and I don't know if I play music, I don't know if that comes.
Oh, well, you're off right now. You need to hit you're muted.
Oh yeah, that
I'll let
makes
you
it.
do
Yeah. Can you hear that? Probably.
that.
Actually, maybe I think if I
Hey, I know you're asleep right now, but I want you to know you're doing a good job. Just talking to our core audience base.
yeah,
Uh,
stay in,
or
stay
people who
in.
are awake. I want you to know you're doing a good job too. But it's funny. I will say about this one, 'cause I know what it ended up being, but it's not what I intended it to be.
Mhm.
Is it's very claustrophobic, and I know the music is very claustrophobic.
Exactly. Yeah. And
So
that's a really good way to put it. And actually, so can you hear the sound note? Yeah. And actually, I haven't played any before, so just this comparison, I think. You can hear how much of a lighter, happy-go-lucky kind of sound that we have there.
it,
And
it
then
does it does
go
still
ahead.
have the big drums of Capricorn though, and
Yeah.
I think we end up towards the back end of this. Those big drums sort of fade back out, which is really interesting. Is it takes a while for those big rock drums to sort of go away again.
Yeah, that's true. And uh, jeez.
Yeah, solid cat content. That's what the people are here for. Come for the conversation about Zodiac. Stay for the cat tent.
All right.
Cat content. Cat content. Cat content. Cat content. Hey, when the music's not playing, turn yourself down a little bit. You're kind of loud. Hi. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
you good? Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Sorry.
It's all
Uh,
good. Cat
okay.
content. It's all cat content.
Cat content. Exactly. Yeah. So you can't go wrong with that. No, she's just knocking stuff off my desk now. Um, so so yeah, but I think claustrophobic is a really good word for this because that's the way it felt. Just with everything that was going on here. It's a very dense image, and I felt like that the music kind of needed that as well.
So one of the things there is a skull in this image, which I think this
Mhm.
is before I had the no skull rule. Because I think that no skull rule was coming up when we were doing was started showing up when we were doing because I think at the same time as this, I'm actually very sure of it. At the same time of this, we're sort of knee deep in what ended up being sampler. So we're doing sampler sort of at the same time.
That's true. Yeah, we are doing it at the same time. Yeah.
And sampler was a different plan, and then it ended up being sampler, which is a lovely piece, but it was a very all-encompassing plan and was a lot of work. Also, fish yet again, it's a water level.
Mhm.
But there's a skull in it in the scuba suit, but in that scuba suit, the eyes are covered up by the um, bar. Like I put it so that the eyes are naturally covered up. It's just
Gotcha.
one of those things that in these pieces you can really see the eyes being covered up and like purposefully always trying to cover eyes
Mhm.
uh because that was just the rule I made for myself. Another rule that I didn't carry on as long as I wanted to, but if you look at the little mushroom in the corner, the little stamp mushroom,
Mhm.
one of the things that didn't really happen, I wanted these to be images and not just fields. And
Mhm.
in their imageness, I wanted to play with the field of vision because that stamp isn't really part of the world, but it's part of the image. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Like
Yeah.
that was a concept I got really into that I never quite pulled out, but was really interesting to me, was to play with like what is in the image and what is in the world of the image.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I think that shows up in the one before it too, or the candle one. I think has a stamp too. I made these stamps from like ground up. Maybe it doesn't. No. Oh yeah, it does. It's that 000 at the
This one.
bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was me trying to figure out. And I liked the idea, but I never quite nailed it, and I sort of had to let it go. Maybe I'll bring it back for this one to see if there's anything interesting there.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that was me really trying to figure out how to do that. But yeah, it was funny because like I just had an idea, like I just wanted to fill an image
Yeah.
with stuff, and then I made it way more claustrophobic than I really meant to.
Mhm.
Uh,
Well, and to me, I mean, I know this probably has nothing to do with like what you intended of the story, but um, it it also has a very kind of steampunk feel,
mhm,
and it almost like just as an isolated image, it sort of felt like to me like this kind of underground community,
mhm.
like underneath the ocean, um, where this community has sort of been built up. You know, this kind of world of humans that were living underground.
Mhm. I think it's
Um,
interesting. I think that actually that wasn't not my thought. Like
yeah.
I think like an underground exploration is something that, or an underwater exploration is something that was just inherent at that point. I really thought everything
Mhm,
was going to be underwater at this point.
mhm. And we are talking about water a lot, and so some people might be a little confused why we call it Leo.
Mm.
But I think, I mean, I think it gets a little bit less watery toward the end. Um, I think, but
Well, it ends up being on an island. Also, the
yeah.
next image is interesting because it does. It's a thing I have never done
Uh-huh.
since. Um,
Well,
which is
and I love this one actually. I love.
Um, well, this was almost like this is an image. I They had just changed the way my editing system works. The editing system I use has just changed, so I had to
Mhm,
change the way I made a lot of images. So I was very frustrated, and I the reason it is so much simpler than a lot of the other images is because I couldn't really figure out this new editing system.
mhm,
And in my mind, it's almost, it's not quite a joke, but it was a motivational post. This image is a motivational poster in the Capricorn world, because there was just these little bits of Capricorn that would just kind of show up, and
uh-huh,
this was a big example of that. This is another example where you can see that I won't show skulls or eyes. This is
uh-huh.
me specifically not showing. This is more about what I don't show than do show. Um, but yeah, it was a very frustrating experience for a while, and I would argue with them and try to explain like what they need to do to fix their system, and they never did. They did not care,
Uh-huh.
which is fine. But this image existed because I couldn't quite figure out how to work my editing system
Mm,
the way I wanted to, so I just had to make something.
gotcha. Well, and actually, I remember you complaining about that at the time.
Hmm.
But I don't think I realized that that this image was sort of the result of that, I think. But I do remember uh you verbalizing how upset you were about that.
Me verbalizing unheard.
But actually I mean maybe it kind of worked out for the best because actually I really love this and like the description of it being I remember we talked about it, the idea of it being a motivational poster before and
Mhm.
I just think that's so perfect especially in the Yonko world. Um and again and it sort of like ties into this over here like this underground like worker community because when I was saying like underground world it was almost like underground world of outcasts people that had been kind of uh sent down here with the intention of working and then here like this is sort of their overlords their corporate overlords giving them motivation here.
Yeah, this is sort of this is very Yonko esque. I
Yeah.
think that was like before, and this is also when we started chatting about, this is early what Yonko LLC was.
Right. Hmm.
So this is like lore heavy Yonko LLC,
Hmm.
unlike what like Yonko LLC more now is, which is more art collective heavy, where the
Hmm.
lore is still there. But when we started, we were deep into the lore. Like we
Yeah.
were convinced that we were gonna dress in like robes constantly,
Right.
and like there was this very lore esque vibe to
Exactly.
the piece, which sort of fades away into a more human experience as we went with like synthetic coffee break, this
Right.
podcast, and also even hold music, which is
Mhm.
while is very Yonko heavy lore, we were very open about it. I think before we
Exactly.
would have been secretive, and this is figured out how to put it only so you had to call it or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point we're very lore heavy in.
Yeah, well, and I think that's interesting, like how we have sort of changed the way we're approaching it because and I don't know if like part of it's just sort of laziness or I think part of it, at least on my part, might be because but I think part of it's also just um like I don't know. I guess there was a limit to like how long I could stay in character, so,
Yeah, I
with
get
all
that.
the but and so it's more like kind of expressing well and maybe and actually like the podcast actually probably changed a lot of it because we you know it
Talking.
wasn't too hard to figure out who we are at that point like
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
oh my goodness,
Uh, yeah, it's another. Is that another one?
that's another one, yeah, and we're
Yeah,
only eight
got it.
we're only 8 minutes into this.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad because I was worried about Leo, and I'm glad that Leo is having its moment in the sun because
Yeah,
Leo is an important piece of, but it does feel a little middle childy. But I love my little middle child.